But a funny thing happened to me on the way to Congress. I lost, but it was quite a year. This is a picture of my family back in 1968 when I was running for the United States Congress. I was 40 years old, and this is my wife, Joyce, and she is the mother of Becky, and this is my daughter, Carol, and then much younger is my daughter, Shannon. And all my daughters and a whole lot of the daughters of the ladies and men that helped in my campaign all wore the same dress and blue and yellow, like my billboards and everything. And they were all Blaney Bells. And they would go with me to rallies, and I'm speaking everywhere. And what a busy year, and for free. Although, but I worked, that's the hardest year I ever worked. In our campaign, they took us to Washington, and the guys that were vying for the nomination as president each spoke on 3 successive nights. And so this is Richard Nixon, and we all lined up and got a picture shaking hands with him. And the next night they had Ronald Reagan speak to us for an hour. He was just great, and later became our president. And then this other picture, I don't know if you could get him in there, there's Gerald Ford. He was the minority leader of the House, the Republican Party. We were the minority party then. And I got to shake hands with him. After a great year running, you know, I had 1,000 people working in my campaign, and newspaper and TV and radio and ads and billboards all over town. I didn't get to go to Congress and save the country. What can I salvage out of that experience? Well, I had these pictures. I had pictures of 4 presidents. So then I had this printed, and it says, so here's a picture of me shaking hands with George Bush, the first George Bush, and with Ronald Reagan, and with Gerald Ford, and with Richard Nixon. So it says, over the years, 4 presidents have used Walter Blaney in an advisory capacity. And then there's a little asterisk, and in much smaller print it says, well, sort of an advisory capacity. And then way down low in little tiny print here it says, okay, to be perfectly honest, the presidents all said, Walter, when I want your advice, I'll ask for it. And so that gets a laugh. And so I used this as my flyer to send out. And all my clients would get this, and they say, well, that's funny. And by golly, he's shaking hands with the president. And so he must be getting around pretty good. And it helped. It was a good flyer to put out, you know, a good little piece. A lot of speakers wanted to know if they could use my idea. And I politely gave them a good answer. I said, no. That's what made me different. They didn't have pictures shaking hands with the president. Now, this is Walter Zaney Blaney, and that's George Bush, #1, the father of George W. Bush. And he was the one running for Congress on one side of the street, and I was running on both Republicans. We were not running against each other. In fact, he helped me get an extra $20,000 for my campaign from the Republican National Committee. Because back then, you had to have $100,000 to run a statewide, rather a district-wide campaign for the U.S. Congress, and I got that and more. So at any rate, we're just, you know, talking here, got a nice picture together. And then this is many, many years later. This is that George Bush here, and this young guy is this old guy. So now we're the young guys, now we're the old guys. This was several years ago. George and Barbara invited me to appear at a party that they were giving for their family. And so George is going to introduce me to do the show. Pretty nice to have a immediate past president introducing you for your show. But I'm doing it at his party, like, for free, so what else, you know? He wanted to pay me, and I said, you can't pay me, George. And so anyhow, I said, just as a thought, somebody mentioned they wanted me to pull the shirt off of your son, Neil. Now, I'm mixed up. Is that him in the red coat? He said, yeah, he's in the red coat. Yeah, I'll go get him for you. I said, no, I don't want to meet him. I just want to, if that's your son, I want to pick the right guy, you know. And so that really baffled George and Barbara later. They just went crazy when I pulled his shirt off, you know, because I hadn't met him, and they knew that and everything. And they were all really laughing, and that was a fun date to play, yeah. That's my buddy George, and Barbara is a peach. She is so funny, and she is a character, but everybody loves Barbara and George. So they're nice people, and I just wish we could both go back to this age and start over, you know. So that's pretty much my story with the presidents.